Sentire Media.
Ciao a tutti and welcome to Venice Talks, a podcast series dedicated to Venice in Italy. I'm your host, Monica Cesarato, a Venetian food and travel blogger. Join me as I share my insider knowledge to help you explore Venice at 360 degrees. In this weekly podcast, we'll dive into the heart of a city, uncovering hidden stories and connecting with the people who make Venice unique. The artisans, the writers, the fashion designers, the bloggers, the journalists, and more. Let's break free from cliché and discover the true essence of Venice, not just the monuments, but the vibrant people, the Venetians. Experience Venice the right sustainable way. You can find me on my blog at www.monicacesarato.com and across all social media platforms. Enjoy the episode and let's journey through Venice together. Have you fallen for Venice? I want to hear your story. Record a quick voice message, just 2 minutes or less, and tell me what made you fall in love with La Serenissima. It could be a moment, a view, a feeling, anything that captured your heart. Your voice could be featured in one of the episodes. Send your clip via WhatsApp or email me at info@monicacesarato.com. Let's celebrate the magic of Venice, one story at a time. Welcome back to Venice Talks, Season 3, Episode 15.
Hi everybody and welcome back to Venice Talks. Today I'm very happy because I got an extremely special guest with me on the show, and it is Erica Hill from CNN, and she's here to talk to us about the documentary Saving Venice. Ciao Erica, how are you?
Oh, my friend, it is so nice to be with you, Monica. It's been a minute.
I know, I can't believe it's actually been, it's 1 year, exactly this week.
No, I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking at this time last year, we were sweating together all over the canals of Venice.
Right now, I'm sweating on my own, okay? But it's true. So first of all, Erica, I know the story, whatever, but let's tell everybody's listening. How did you come up with the idea of this documentary on Venice?
So I would say almost 2 years ago, I read an article in Wired magazine, and I believe it was titled "Let Venice Think." And it was on the premise that it involved a research paper looking at, should you just sort of allow Mother Nature to reclaim Venice in some ways? And this just sort of got my wheels turning. So I was looking at different pitches for a show that we have at CNN called The Whole Story. And the goal of that show is we tell a story for 1 hour, and it's a story that's a journey. And we want to bring viewers on a journey. And I thought to myself, well, I'd like to journey to Venice because I've never been there. But as I started
that's the perks of being a reporter, isn't it?
So there's that. But as I started to dig into it a little bit more, this idea of should we let Venice think? So I started, the first thing that we do when we have a grain of an idea as reporters is we do a ton of research, to your point, Monica. So I just started reading everything I could about Venice, about the history of it, about the way Venice was constructed, how it's evolved over the years, both the physical footprint of Venice, but also Venice itself as a community, as a center of trade, as a republic, its role over centuries.
Yeah,
and I became super interested in Venice. And along the way, I came across the Venice Project Center, which is run by Fabio Carrera, who is a native Venetian. And he started this project about 30 years ago. So he's based, I guess technically he's based in Worcester, Massachusetts, in Venice, and then also in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And he started the Venice Project Center, like I said, 30 years ago through his role at Worcester Polytechnic Institute, where he teaches. And what they have done over the decades is study basically everything that you can study about Venice. So I had reached out to him, and we ended up on a Zoom for probably an hour and a half. And one of the things that he said that most stuck with me was when I said to him, I'm leaning into this idea of saving Venice, and what does that actually mean? And should Venice be quote unquote saved, right, from sinking or flooding or whatever it may be? And he said, Erica, it is not Venice that needs saving; it's the Venetians. And in that moment, I thought to myself, that's the story, because it's the story that no one expects. So I would often say when people say, oh, what is your hour on Venice about? It's called Saving Venice. Oh, it must be about the water. And I say to people, well, you come for what you think is the sinking, flooding city, but you stay for the reality. The water at this point has a functioning Band-Aid that is going to work for a while. But what really needs saving is the heart and the soul of this community. And so it's about saving the Venetians themselves, right? And what they are doing and how they are empowering one another to hold on to their culture, to their community, to this brilliant, vibrant city, and to not just hold on to it, but in some ways to bring it back to life. And so that's really what started me down this path. And then from there, I started working with the rest of the team once our bosses gave us the green light. Then the brilliant Jessica Small, who's a senior producer here in the documentary unit at CNN, was assigned to it. And Jesse and I just started going hard on research and sort of finding everything we could. We found you, Monica, and started to really look to the story of Venice through the eyes of Venetians.
And I still remember when you called me and the conversation we had, and the way I felt, finally somebody was gonna talk about the Venetians and not just about all the millions of problems that the city has. And how did you choose the people? Because I know, and I remember proposing loads and tons, but how did you get about to choosing who you chose to appear on the documentary?
Yeah, I would say it's a lot of collective research. And part of it came through, we spoke to a number of people just to get a sense of who they are. What are they like as characters? What is their personal story? How do they feel about Venice? What do they think is working? What do they think is not working? So part of it was just, feeling out a lot of people. And then also people's availability, right? When we were available to travel, when would people be there? That comes into play as well. And what are the stories that we thought were not just the strongest, but also, the most representative of what's happening in the city at the moment. And to be honest, it's been so long now, which sounds terrible, but those are the factors obviously at play. And so that's pretty much how it came about. And I think we got really lucky that, we had all of these wonderful people who happened to be available this, magical week in July of 2024. And they, and each one of those voices and you, Monica, are what really brought this to life.
I think we were kind of blessed in July that it was so nice. The weather, nice. It was hot.
Gosh,
okay,
but it was beautiful.
It was beautiful. I think for me, one of the greatest thing was in the morning coming to you on the boat to pick you up. I think that the journey that I was doing was 20 minutes, half an hour on the boat, just heading to pick you all up. It was like okay, getting to see Venice at 7:30 in the morning. When all the boats are going around, loading and unloading, all the deliveries are coming. That is a different Venice, And as what we were just saying before coming on air, we were saying we miss both of us miss going on the boat.
Yeah. We got sort of lucky. We had working boats for the week. It's interesting what you say about that magical time of day, Monica. I find that's one of my favorite times of day in any city. So, I'm in New York City. I love being up and out early. I'm a morning person. I love, sort of waking up with the birds and seeing the sun come up. I love my walks with my dog in the morning, but I love seeing a city come to life. And there were a couple of mornings where we got to do that on the canals. And it's, it reminds you that Venice is like any other place in the world. There are deliveries, there's trash collection, there's the mail, you've got the UPS boxes on the boat.
And Monica,
because
Monica on the UPS boat, because Monica actually once got taken on a UPS boat as a box. By mistake.
That's a story you didn't tell us while we were in Venice,
because I got so many. That was so funny because there was supposed to be a taxi to come and pick me up, and turns out it was I can't remember if it was DHL or UPS, but it was an interesting journey, let's say.
Yeah,
sitting on top of the boxes, it was fun. But yeah, sorry, back to what you were saying. I think I got to say one of my best experiences in Venice was when I used to work years and years ago on one of the islands. One of those with the beautiful hotels and stuff, and I had to go to work I had to be at work at 7:00 in the morning, so it meant I had to leave about 5. And I remember crossing St. Mark's Square every morning at about 5:30, 6:00, and through the season. So it is amazing. So what how did you structure for the people that haven't seen the program? But by the way, where is he available to be seen? Is still available? Yes, of
So
course.
it is available. So in the United States, it's
Mm-hmm.
available, and I'm going to call up this email to make sure that I say this properly. So in the United States, it's available on the HBO Max app, so the streaming app.
Okay.
It's the program is called The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper, and so this episode is Saving Venice. So that's where it's available in the US. And then I am looking up. Let me look this up, and I will get it for you before the
Okay.
end of our session here. But I'm looking it up because I know it was sent to me where you can access it outside the US.
Fantastic.
So
Okay, great.
stand by for that. Yeah.
So we managed to film in two different periods because you came in summer, then you came back in was it October, I think, yes.
Yes.
What's a big, apart from the weather, but of course, what were the major differences that you seen between the two seasons in your opinion?
Sure. Well, the weather was a big one because it was, to your point, when we were there for a week in July. I mean, it was hot. We are all still shocked that you cannot see that anyone is sweating in any of the footage because
No,
that was not the case at all. But we had this, I mean, it was actually, the weather could not have been more perfect. Bright blue skies. It was absolutely stunning. And Venice was putting on a beautiful show for us in July. And then we came back the first week of October, and it was a completely different scene.
Oh,
I was texting with a friend of mine when the first day that we were back in October, who said, "Oh, what's it like?" And I said, "I lived in San Francisco for a number of years." And I said, "It reminds me of San Francisco right now, the way the light is, because it was chilly and it was damp and it was rainy and it was foggy, but that too was magical in its own way." So we were all, we were coming back. Our CNN team was reunited in Venice. And so we were in areas that had become very familiar to us. We like to
mhm.
pretend that there are neighborhoods, but
I know.
seeing all of these buildings that we know with the light hitting them differently.
Yeah.
That was a separate kind of magic. It also offers you a different visual, and I think it gave us a more fulsome idea of what it's like to be in the city at different
Mm.
times of year, at different times of the day, different weather systems. All of that comes into play. The other thing that I noticed in October is how much busier it was. I mean, there were a lot of people in July. Don't get me wrong. We know that it was
Mhm.
busy, but it wasn't even. I remember last year when we had this conversation, Monica. It wasn't quite as busy,
As
perhaps,
you
as
thought
years
it was going.
past.
Yeah,
October, I felt like October, it was slammed.
it was.
I feel like there were far more people than there were in July.
It was. I think even talking to colleagues and stuff, I think a season has shifted.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's because it's getting hotter and hotter in the summer and people read more about it. So they know it's going to be hot. So they decided not to come. I don't know if people just travel in different season. Maybe also the cost of traveling is cheaper in
Hmm.
October. I don't
Yeah,
know, but
typically is.
I've seen a shift. I mean, October used to be a very quiet month, but the last 2 or 3 years, yes, it is September, October. I become really busy. I would say they become our July and August, you know,
Yeah.
with a problem though that you don't have the weather because funny enough, after I filmed with you in the first week of October, I filmed a couple of weeks later with another crew and the weather
Hmm.
was fantastic. We were in
Yeah.
short sleeves.
So
And
funny, right?
I was thinking, hang on, two weeks earlier, I'm like standing in the rain. I mean, I still remember the rain coming down. I don't think I never got so soaked like
I
the week
know.
that
Remember
we
those choppy days we were out in this driving rain in
oh
these
my God.
open boats trying to keep the cameras dry?
Oh
Although
my
that's a
God.
fun adventure in itself, right? You just have to embrace all these moments as an adventure.
Wow,
But
we
I
had an
do remember the
amazing
sun
trip.
came out one day and we were all like little kids. We were like,
Yeah,
oh, the sun's out.
I know, I know. I think it was amazing when he went to do the drones with all the rain that was coming down, that he actually
Yeah.
managed to get those shots that are
We
amazing
got
in the rain.
so lucky with our drone shots, especially when we were back in October. We were really fortunate that on one of those days they decided to raise the Mose so
I
that we
know.
were able to get that footage. And Lewis,
I
our drone
know.
operator, did an incredible job of getting those shots. And
I,
it's such a powerful view. And I think for so many people, it really puts into perspective the challenges that Venice does face when it comes to the environmental issues, right? And it's very tough to deal with a problem locally that is created on a global scale because there's only so much you can do locally. But to be able to see it in action, to see, the width of these inlets, how each one of the gates comes up and what ultimately the impact is on the city. That's an
Yeah.
important part of the story. We were so fortunate that we were able to shoot it on our own so we could show that.
Oh, I'll tell you, that was for me probably one of the best experiences that I took home. Well, first of all, because as a Venetian, you don't get you don't get to see the Mose to rise because you're not
Right.
allowed to be anywhere when it happens. Okay. So for me to be like, we were like a 500 meters, it was like, oh my God, oh my God. And it was interesting because I thought it was going to happen in a totally different way. I had this image of a dam, the blocks to come up very, very slowly. And instead it's like a plop, plop, literally. And I was going to the guys, wait, it's coming up now, boom, shot, gone. And I think for me as a Venetian, it was, I think, very interesting to speak of the people that, raise the organization that raises the Mose, because I think there is so much misunderstanding about it, and it was nice to but you talk to them and they explain how it works, because I think sometimes in Venice, there's so a lot is said, but clear information, not so many. So even amongst the Venetians, that we are not, we don't really understand. We are happy they raise it, but we're not happy because it costs money. Well, it goes both ways. You can't have something that works and not pay for it, I suppose. So I think it was beautiful that you show it. For you, your best experience?
Oh my gosh, I don't know that I could sum it up into just one,
Oh,
actually.
okay. All right. You just go
I
and tell me all of them. And
I mean, there was so much about Venice I love. I would say probably the best part is the people that we met, right? So it's, meeting you, Monica, but so many of our characters. When I travel, so that's how I like to travel. When I travel, I like to, as much as I can, immerse myself in wherever I am. To get a better understanding of what it's like to live there. What is the local culture? What is important to people? What are the local foods? I mean, I am now an expert in bacca da mantecato, let's be
Oh,
honest.
yes. Oh, yes.
So we did at one point have them ranked. I'm not going to go into my rankings here because I don't want anybody to get upset, but I just want you to know that your CNN team has very strong feelings about where we think is the best
Okay.
bacca da mantecato. Anyway, so gosh, it's hard to, let's see, I'll see what just sort of pops out in my mind. I mean, I loved our lunch at Cesare and Diana's.
Oh,
It
that
was just really special. And it was so great to be on the island of San Erasmo, to be in a place where, most people don't visit. To go through the farm was beautiful. They were just so gracious and hospitable, hosting everybody for the lunch. And it was a great way to get to meet people. I loved that. I loved being at Elena's parents' house, which is this beautiful home that's been on, what's the very famous map from 1501? I can't remember the name of it. It begins with a B.
Oh, yes. Oh, gosh. Yes.
But their home is, at one point I asked Ellen, I said, so how long, how long has this house been here? And she said, oh, it's on that map. And so to be in that space and to meet her and her mom, and see the way that Anna makes these gorgeous, and you'll see this in the documentary, hopefully everybody who watches, but Anna, who makes the flags that are the awards for people who are winning the rowing regattas. I just loved being immersed in that very Venetian culture. Michaela's gorgeous designs at her shop, Relight Venice, and her passion for this city and for art and the way she's working with other young artisans. I mean, I think that's such a great lesson for all of us in how we can turn something that feels like a negative, right? It's hard to find a space for your business. It's hard to get young people back here. It's hard to, get people to buy Venetian goods. She has nothing but a positive light when she talks about things and the way she's connecting people. I'm fascinated by what Matteo is doing with recycling the glass. Emanuele, who I just adore and has offered me a job at his tiramisu shop. And I keep reminding him that, because one day you're going to come by Ice Mercante and there I'm going to be serving you, Monica. So get ready.
Okay, no problem.
But it was all of it. And then it was also just being on the water, to your point. It was, the first approach to the city is magical and you think, oh, this actually exists. And then, being out sort of in the quiet moments, in the quieter areas of the city. When we were our last day of filming in July, we were with Cesare Paris. And, all of a sudden we were in what was really a neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
In Castello. And it was just this beautiful picture as you look down the sidewalk essentially, right in between the buildings and all the clotheslines and the gondolier
Oh yeah.
shirts, and and kids running around. It just felt local and beautiful. And it felt like such a privilege to be there. I mean, to be out on the water at night is so beautiful. I could go on and on. It's hard for me to pick one moment, I would say, but above anything, it was just the generosity and the warmth and the hospitality of everyone that we met.
I think one of the things that I found funny of my experience with Cesare was that we decided to film on the side of the canal. Well, first of all, I still remember it was 12 o'clock and I was under the sun. So that I will never
Oof,
forget.
that was one of the hottest days.
Honest to God, I thought I was going to faint.
Yes, I thought everyone was going to faint. I agree. But then his cousin saved everybody. His cousin popped her head out and said, "Does anybody want a Fanta?"
I love that because I was looking at her and she went behind because you were filming and everybody else was busy filming. So I saw her with the corner of my eye and she was motioned to me like showing me like a drink, and I went yeah, okay. So for okay, but I didn't realize she was Cesare's cousin. I thought she was just somebody just looking at us. It was so funny, but that shows you how small Venice is. We actually parked the boats underneath her house.
Well, there was another moment when we were filming with Emanuele, and we were also sort of anchored, right? We were in Castello, we were anchored there in the shade on the side of the canal, and there was somebody popping out of their window, and I thought, oh gosh, we're bothering them, we're too loud, we're in the way. And they were like very kindly checking to make sure their TV wasn't too loud and that it wasn't bleeding into our microphones.
That is so funny.
Yeah, it was really sweet.
I think the greatest thing also was of a lunch we did with Cesare and Diane and in Sant'Erasmo. It was beautiful to see all the Venetians. Some of them knew each other, some of them didn't, but chatting with you, explaining their point of view and how they live the city and the problems that the city have, but also how they they take care of his, or they try to take care of his problems. I thought it was beautiful because it shows that Venetians could work together. And I think the biggest problem at the moment that we have is that we haven't realized that we can do that to save the city, that we should, as Venetians, work together, not work against each other. And I think until the Venetians don't realize that, it's gonna be hard, but it's happening. The younger generation, I can see they like to work together, to collaborate, to find ways to bounce off ideas and everything. So yeah, it was okay, we keep saying good things. Any bad things you noticed when you were here? Come on, be honest. We're not gonna take it personally. We're not gonna welcome you back anymore. We're gonna be
right. I can't show my face in Venice anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the things that were annoying to me are the things that are annoying to you. It's similar things that annoy me in New York City. I'll be quite honest. It's people who just stand there on their phones, or they're taking a selfie, or they're in the, they're sort of in the middle of the road, wherever it may be. I mean, in New York City, it happens all the time too. And it's also the people who stand on the left on the escalator. People, if you're in New York City, we stand on the right, we move on the left. But it was sort of that, and it wasn't Venetians. I mean, it's just, I'm sometimes floored, no matter where I go, that people forget that they're visitors in someone else's home.
Yes.
And it's a very small number of people who do that, but that's always kind of remarkable to me. Like, there's a lot of other people here and they also want to enjoy the city. And some of these people, just want to get home, or they want to get to work, or they want to, go pick up their child from school or from daycare, whatever it may be. But it's amazing to me sometimes the lack of awareness. And I think that's universal. I don't, that's not,
I think it's something, I think it's something that is happening to the world right now. We're turning into a very individual kind of society.
Sort of
so that is all about rights, but not about dues. My duty doesn't exist. I only have rights, and that's wrong. Listen, today is, in 2 days' time, it's going to be Redentore. You had the opportunity last year to actually take part in probably one of the best festivals that we have in Venice. You were lucky because you actually got to do it as a Venetian on the boat. What do you remember about that part?
It was quite the party. I don't think I was prepared for what it was going to be. I was struck by the elaborate boats. I mean, but put together very wisely, with bathrooms on them to spend all day on the
Oh
lagoon.
yeah,
It was
because
really amazing.
I
It was
remember
quite a
this
party.
conversation we had when I said to you, "You sure you guys want to do it on a boat?" Because I said, "You're not gonna have a bathroom. You're not gonna
We
have a
had to do it
bathroom."
on, there was no other way to do it. Don't worry. We docked, we walked across a bunch of boats. We got to the porta potties on land. We were fine. You know what I was struck by? I mean, how much fun everybody was having. It was a gorgeous day, but two of those things that really stood out that night, we ended up tying our boat up really so we could, we were just stopping for a minute trying to figure out where we were going to be. We'd done a bunch of filming. So we ended up tying our boat up with another boat of people. They were from Chioggia.
Mhm.
And they were the most lovely, again, the most generous, hospitable. They insisted, I mean, they had all of the Venetian specialties that, thanks to you,
Mhm.
Monica, we were now well versed in and had tried a million different times. But we had yet another bacala mantecato. We had a sardine sour. We had the snails that you suck out of their little shells.
Oh,
We had
bovolete,
all
yes.
the things, except we did not have the, what did I eat at the fair? So, listeners, you should know that I turned to Monica. Sometimes I could understand Italian words and sometimes I couldn't. And we were at a fair, a local fair in Venice, and I was trying all the little delicacies, and it looked like a piece of fish. It was white, and it almost looked like maybe it was a piece of squid. And the woman we were
Oh,
with, but that was, I don't know if you remember,
oh, nervetti, nervetti,
it was a
nervetti.
veal tendon. It was a veal
Yes,
tendon.
nervetti, nervetti. Yes, oh,
Yes.
nervetti.
And
Yes.
it's probably better that I didn't know that when I ate it, but it was delicious, I will say.
Oh, you actually liked
Um,
it?
it
You
was good.
liked
Yeah,
it?
it was actually
Ah,
quite
okay,
tasty.
okay.
Um, but so sorry, I go off on tangents as Monica knows. Sorry for everybody who's listening. But that night when we were tied up next to this boat, they were just, I mean, they were just the loveliest family. And we had such a nice time talking with them. They were, I mean, overly generous. They kept sending us food. We were all so full, we felt bad. But to me, and you had said to us, Monica, this is what happens. Everybody just sort of shares and everybody's in the party together. And this is how a lot of these these long tables that line the banks of
Mhm.
that line the banks, you see everybody just come together and bring out what they have, and that's sort of the way it was traditionally. So we felt like we had a little bit of a window into that, which was really nice. And then we were also just all of us were blown away by the fireworks show. I mean, first of all, it
Yeah.
lasts forever. It was like 45 minutes. It was so
It
great.
was. It was really long. I didn't
Yeah.
realize it was really long.
And it
I
was
mean,
really good. And it was
I
funny. We
know.
we could feel the ashes spraying down on us, and we were all joking. Like, New York City would never let you get this close to the fireworks. This is awesome.
Oh yeah, I know. I remember I did it years and years ago, and I was Abbe Giudecca in one of the altane, the terraces. And I remember
Yeah.
that was a thing that I noticed as well. All the ashes coming down. It was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'm not so sure I'm impressed with this. Mainly because I was worried something was gonna catch fire. But hey, they've been
Yeah.
doing it for so long. But they were long because this year I was for
Yeah.
New Year, and they weren't that long. They weren't. Oh, and by the way, they were in this year. They're supposed to have done them in from them at the same place, same location where they do the
Yeah.
Redentore, and instead they did it at the Arsenale. So all of a
Oh,
sudden, yeah, on New Year we are all pointing with our eyes towards the Bacino di San Marco, and all of a sudden the fireworks starts and is on our left, and we go like, "What? Somebody must have set them off wrong." And instead, it turns out that they actually moved them. I think it was a question of crowd control or something like that. I'm not so sure. So, but yeah,
mm.
but 45 minutes. It was. I remember I was in Murano watching them and thinking,
Oh,
"Whoa,
wow.
this is never ending."
Yeah.
It
It
was
was
beautiful.
it was beautiful. And I will say the next day too, the regatta for
Yeah,
Redentore was,
that
I
was
mean,
good
I was just struck by how beautiful it was. So I had never seen a Venetian regatta, and to see
and
everybody in
fast.
their white pants and their striped shirts and their beautiful brightly colored boats and all of the
Wait,
people
wait,
following
wait,
along.
wait, wait, Erica. You forgot about something. And the
What I
men.
forget about.
The men, they were good looking.
I'll leave them to you, Monica.
Okay,
They're
yeah,
all
it's okay.
yours.
But no, but they were cute. Come on, young but cute, okay, and fast.
So
Our
fast.
our
Yeah.
motorboat was struggling to keep up. But
I
wow,
know it was really wild. But that was, I mean, that also felt like just a gift to be a part of those moments,
yeah,
in something that felt, truly traditional Venetian. I was really excited that we were able to be a part of it and
they
to
were
share
not.
that with our
Do you
viewers.
remember? They were not tourists. They were only local boats over family and
Yeah.
friends, over people that were
Yeah.
going. Yeah, I felt it a bit surreal in a way, because I thought, whoa. And, you know, I personally felt, oh, I'm never going to get to experience this again. I don't think so. I thought it was great. And I just remember the boat going really fast, really, really fast, and thinking, whoa,
Yeah.
this is
We were
choppy.
going really fast. You're right.
I know, no, but the men's were cute. I know you're married. This is probably you pretend, but I'm pretty sure we all watched, and it was fun also to say Elena and her mom and everything. So that was cool.
Yeah, it was great.
So and when you came back in October.
Mhm.
I don't want to give too much away of a documentary, but at least people get interested in this. We got to talk. The documentary is split in two ways. So you have one part where you get to talk to the Venetians, but you also have one part where you're talking about the problems of Venice.
Mhm.
Which one was the hardest in a way to try to develop, in your opinion?
I don't know that one was necessarily more difficult than the other. I think in some ways, that's a thought, that's an interesting question. In some ways, the issues facing Venice feel on the surface like they're very clear cut, right? So you have the water, you have
Yeah.
rising sea levels, which again, Venice can only do so much locally that for something that is a global issue, right? And a city that is sinking, which a number of other places in the world are dealing with. But you know, so you have the rising water, the sinking. So there's that, right? And how they're dealing with that. There's the issue of over tourism, you know, and how you either try to limit it or not, right? For a city that has, you know, that decades ago said we're going all in. This is going to be our main economic driver. So it almost feels like the problems were sort of clear cut. The solutions, I think, are more interesting because it's so individual, right? How people feel. And so and I think you'll find this with most, you know, quote unquote issues around the world. It's how does it impact you personally? And that's where you see perhaps the greatest issue and the greatest need. So that was really fascinating to me in finding people who could speak to what they see as the issue, but also finding people who had ideas for solutions. So I don't know that one was more difficult than the other. I think you really can't have one without the other. So they play off of one another. It's a symbiotic relationship in that sense because there are issues facing the city of Venice that I think are pretty widely recognized and agreed upon within the city. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, totally
But
agree
so,
with
you
you.
know, there's sort of the environmental impact and then there's the economic impact, right? Which includes tourism. But the ways that different people want to deal with that and what they see as the largest contributor to those problems, those are all very different. And so it was important to us that we showcase that there is this wide range of ideas of both the problem, but also ideas for solutions. So you'll have, you know, some people talking about the very real issue, which I think is relatable to people around the world about a lack of affordable housing and
Oh, yeah.
also jobs, right? So there may be jobs, but maybe these are not the jobs that allow you to live in Venice,
Yeah.
right? Because of the cost of housing, because of what they pay, because of transportation issues, right? But how different people look at those problems, I think
Oh,
also gives you a more fulsome view of a community because it's not, you know, it's not a monolithic view.
exactly. And I think also one thing that is shows that unfortunately the way the city has gone, only concentrating on tourism, is showing right now, because we were talking about before we went to the show, is showing right now that we don't have so many tourists as we usually have this, you know, at this time of year, how quickly the economy in a city that is only dedicated to tourism. And you would have thought with COVID, we would have learned that, okay, how quickly things can change. Because, you know, the hotels, they're not full. They might be full maybe for the weekend because we go to Redentore, but during the week, we are not.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is July, high season. You know, I think, but, well, I don't know, there are so many factors that contribute, but just having a city that is only dedicated to tourism, it's not going to work anymore. I mean, we need to find alternatives, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, you need to come back in 1 year time and do, you know, another show, as in the Venetians are saved now.
That's it. We saved them?
We save them. Okay,
You've
well,
been
I
saved
may do
money?
it.
Perfect.
Yeah, what can we do? What can we do with Venice now? Now, I think it's, I don't know if it's too late. Somebody, I know that one of the comments, like Cesare was saying, Venice is dead. But the point that he was saying, because I got to interview thanks to you, I got to interview most of the people that are
Yeah.
in the show anyway. And he actually said that, yeah, Venice is dead, but it's like a phoenix. Is always being reborn, you know.
Yeah.
So I think
That was, I
that's
will say, that was one of my takeaways, right? In speaking with people. I mean, in doing the research, but then certainly once we were on the ground meeting people, is this idea of, um, Venice is also, whether as a republic or a city, Venice has always reinvented itself.
yes,
Right. And so,
yeah,
and it's interesting. We live in this, understandably, and this, it's not unique to Venice in some ways, but there's this nostalgia, right? We certainly see it in the United States. I'm working on another story right now about Route 66, which is a really famous
oh
road.
yes, I
It's,
know, I know, I
yeah.
know, yeah, yeah.
And so, Route 66 was actually eclipsed. They put in a new road called Interstate 40. So that got rid of a lot of Route 66, but it was
Oh,
started really in the 20s. But part of the push was as an economic driver to get more people to visit some of these towns, to bring in,
mm-hmm.
some economic development in different areas. And it's almost frozen in time in some ways. And so there's this real sense of nostalgia of this is the Americana of, maybe the
Yeah,
1950s or the 60s and the picture that that paints. But the reality is, just like anywhere else, Route 66 has to keep evolving and
of
Venice has to
course.
keep evolving. And in that growth, there can be, to your point, this really beautiful moment of a phoenix rising and of something beautiful that comes out of what felt like maybe a death is
Mm-hmm.
actually just the point you had to get to something better.
Yes, yes. I remember years ago, I've interviewed one of the boat makers, of the Orlock makers, and
Hmm.
we were trying to, because he builds the Orlocks in the old tradition, but he was
Hmm.
the first one that showed how the Orlock can be also an ornament, not just the Orlocks for the boat, and
Hmm.
how he started using materials that traditionally in Venice are not used, as different type of wood, because it got harder and harder to find certain woods. And he was saying to me, unless we understand that tradition doesn't mean no, no, no. Tradition evolves. So you can
Yeah.
combine tradition with innovation. You just got to be smart and
Hmm.
understand that sometimes just because you always done it that way doesn't mean it's always the right way. There
Right.
could be a better way. That doesn't mean you got to forget where you're coming from. You can easily combine the two things. And I think is what
Hmm.
in Venice, I think people need to understand. I think the new generations, the generation that goes from 30s to 40s, I think I've understood this and we're trying to do it. Older generation, maybe older than me, and I'm not going to say how old I am, but let's say older than me. They, like you say, they still live on the nostalgia, or Venice used to be like this. But I'm pretty sure their grandparents used to say exactly the same thing when they
Yeah.
start changing things. So it's just, but as you say, I totally agree with Venice right now is at a point where things are not going to carry on. Okay, things are going to change, I hope. I'm not so sure how, but somehow. I think what
Yeah.
we need to tackle right now is housing. I think is the most important things, because as I cannot remember some famous Italian, I cannot remember who said it the other day, said that a city without citizens is not a city anymore. It's just a theme park. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I cannot remember who he was. He was an Italian, but he's an Italian writer, but he was on the news.
Well, I mean, that idea came up, that came up in a lot of our interviews, right?
Yeah,
That Venice was turning into an amusement park, right? It was
yeah,
just sort of this because it is this. I always use the word magical with Venice. So I can't help it. That's how it feels to me. But it almost feels like it's not real
yes.
because I mean, because everybody sees pictures of it, right? So then you get there and you think, oh wow, it really exists. But in
I
some
know.
ways, it's like you're at the, Cinderella's castle or something at Disneyland because it just feels too perfect, right? Out of this picture
Yeah,
postcard. But it's a real living, breathing place. And
yeah,
so to maintain that, it needs to have, to your point, the housing, it needs to have the small businesses, it needs to have life breathing into the community to sustain that community so that people can stay. So you need the doctors and you need the small markets, not just the big supermarkets, and schools.
Yeah. We need the basics, as they say.
Yeah.
So, Erica, I need to close because otherwise me and you can talk for about.
No, we
can
talk all day.
We can have our
all
own
we
show.
need is a script and some chiquete, right?
Which I have.
A little jealous.
So where are we gonna be able to see you?
So I looked it up. So again, it does air on, so if you have access to HBO Max for your listeners in HBO Max land, it is part of the whole story with Anderson Cooper Library. Again, the episode is called Saving Venice. For any listeners outside the US, the episode is available as a showcast wherever you get your podcast.
Okay, cool. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
So there we go.
Okay, I can rewatch it now then. Okay, I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either. So this is good stuff.
I know. So listen, now I'm waiting for you to do maybe something about Venice. I can invent something so you can come back.
Girl, send me all your ideas because Team Venice is ready to hop on the next plane or explore. We're happy to explore other locales as well. Yeah. But yes, we're always ready. And Monica, thank you so much. I mean, we had an incredible time there. We feel, we have an incredible team. So specifically, Jessica, our producer, Davide, who's our director of photography, Ale, our sweet Ale, who's based in Rome. We just had an incredible team. And so this doesn't, as you well know, Monica, but just for your listeners, this doesn't happen with just one person. And you see a limited number of people on the screen. The reality is it takes a really mighty, thoughtful, creative, talented team to bring all of this together. And it never would have happened without the full team. And you're part of that team. So thank you so much for all of your help.
We laughed a lot. I think I was the best.
We laughed a lot. Do you remember what my favorite song is, Monica? My favorite Italian song?
Oh yeah, I cannot. Yes, I got in my head.
It's Italo Disco. It was like the hit of the summer of 2023. I just brought it back for 24.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. Well, see, I don't listen. I listen to Korean music. I'm a Korean woman now.
I know. Now you're all into K-pop.
Oh yeah, very much. But I'll tell you offline. I'll tell you about it. Well, listen, Erica, it was so nice talking to you. I wish Jessica would have been as well because I would have had even more laughs.
She's sorry to miss you, but she sends you baci, and I have to say grazie mille. Really, it was just it was a wonderful time to be there, and we Venice has a very special place in all of our hearts.
Thank you for the wonderful work you did. Thank you so much. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you, my friend. I'll talk to you soon. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you again, Erica. It was a pleasure to have you on Venice Talks. A special thank you as well to Rhea, the wonderful producer who helped make this documentary possible. If you would like to watch Saving Venice or explore the whole story with Anderson Cooper series, it is now available to stream on HBO Max. For listeners outside the USA, the episode is also available as a showcast wherever you get your podcast. Thank you again for listening. Venice Talks podcast is a production of Sentire Media, created, produced and hosted by me, Monica Cesarato. Follow Venice Talks wherever you get your podcast, and if you want to book a food tour or a cooking experience with me, you can find me over at www.monicacesarato.com and on all social medias with the handle @monicacesarato, where you can follow my adventures around Venice. And don't forget, if you loved this episode, please rate it and leave a review. It's very much appreciated.
Hey, podcast producers and show hosts. Do you want to join a podcast network that celebrates all things Italian? At Sentire Media, we understand the allure of Italy and its unique culture. Our devoted team of hosts and producers are all driven by their shared passion for Italy. And we work tirelessly to create the best lifestyle podcasts and content that will whisk you away to the very heart of Italy. With us, you can savor the mouth-watering flavors, get lost in the stories from the past, break down the cultural barriers, and truly immerse yourself in the vibrant traditions of this intoxicating country. If you have a great podcast idea or are already in production and would like to join Sentire Media, head over to sentiremedia.com, that's SENTIRE media.com, and find out how to submit your show.